How's it going, friends? What? How are you doing today? Are you eager to learn, or did you click on this video because you're bored? Well, in any case, I assure you that in this video, I'm going to try to get you to learn a pattern in just a few minutes. It will come in very handy for your chess games because it's a pattern that usually occurs in the endgame phase and one that we can take advantage of in the vast majority of our games. I always say the same thing. For all those players who know patterns, their chess level undoubtedly rises exponentially. Why? Because, as the name itself implies, patterns mean that they repeat in games, and by knowing them, it means we can apply our knowledge against our opponent's options. What do I mean by all that? That the more patterns you know, for sure, you will play better chess. And what's more, you'll be able to understand many moves that most players don't understand. The pattern I'm explaining to you today, friends, come on, I won't ramble anymore, is the highway pattern. Now you're going to see why I call it that. It's a super interesting pattern, as I say, in the endgame. We see a position here, huh? Which obviously we've already reached that final phase of the game because there are simply pawns, a couple of rooks, and a couple of bishops left. And the first thing that should catch our attention is that the player with the black pieces at this moment has an extra pawn, right? However, of course, it's an opposite colored bishop endgame. What does opposite colored bishops mean? It means that the white player's bishop is on a dark square, and the black player's bishop is on a light square. That means that, for example, my bishop will never be able to attack, for instance, these pawns in this bishop. And their bishop, the same thing, right? It won't be able to attack my bishop or, for example, my pawns. That's why, even if one side normally has an extra pawn, it is very difficult to achieve a victory. However, by knowing patterns, we can manage to win games that we normally wouldn't be able to win. In this case, how do we apply the highway pattern? Even if it seems like we can't make progress anywhere, since these pawns, for example, can't advance, the bishop can keep moving around, but it can't really do much either, right? We would like, for example, to come with the king to h6. What for? To break through on g5 and try to create weaknesses over here. But of course, if we move the king to g6, for example, they play rook f2 and prevent us from advancing the pawn, since our bishop would be left hanging. What does hanging mean? Totally undefended. And on the next move, they're going to play, for example, king f4, and they'll never let us make progress again. Therefore, here, how should we continue? Should we continue with f6? Well, no, f6 doesn't seem like an effective breakthrough either, since we would be creating a passed pawn for the white pieces. The e5 pawn would advance to e6, and watch out, it would only be 2 steps away from promoting. And be careful, because when they advance it one more step to e7, it will be well defended by the rook and the bishop. And watch out, let's not run into trouble ourselves, right? So, chess teacher, how can I create a superiority here? Well, the highway pattern says the following. I'm going to give away this pawn, for example, on g5. It's true, I'm giving it away completely. However, I'm going to create a highway for the king so that it can go after the weaknesses. As you can see, whether they capture or not, the king will be able to enter, because if they don't capture, we will capture. So the best option, logically, is for them to capture this pawn that we are giving away, and then we play king g6. Do you see it? From here on, it seems like we're going to recover this pawn, because I can simply think of 3 ways to defend this pawn, and none of them are effective. For example, I can defend it with the bishop. However, it would stop defending the c3 pawn, rook takes c3, check, this pawn would be passed, they would be in real trouble, wouldn't they? Another way I can think of to defend this pawn is with the king, either via h4 or f4. However, I give check with the rook, and the king has to go back. Same thing, if the king had come here, I would give check on h1, right? So there's no way to, let's say, defend that pawn. Therefore, we've given it away, but yes, we'll be able to recover it on the next move. Is this enough for us to win the game? No, now we have to take advantage of that highway. We've created it, now we take advantage of it. Our goal is to get in with the king. Well, at this moment, white, as you can see, has no way to make progress. Therefore, the only thing they can do is wait. In this case, they play the king to f2 to avoid rook entries. I'm not saying they can do much either. We can capture immediately, that would be a good option. But anyway, what the black pieces do is first improve their pieces even more, bishop to g4, hitting the rook, a rook that has to move away. And I don't care where you go, because really, you're not going to be able to take advantage of this file. Let me explain. If at any point you move this bishop, you're gonna have a really tough time continuing to defend your pawns, since you have these two pawns well defended by the bishop. If this one falls, I have the passed c pawn. If this one falls, I have the passed a pawn, and you're gonna have serious problems. Therefore, here, we can afford the luxury of continuing with our plan. King takes g5, king g3, and now what? Well, we continue improving our position. We could check with the pawn, for example, but there's no rush. A piece of advice I'm going to give you for endgames is not to be in a rush. Don't compromise your position. Look, I play the bishop to e6, from where I defend everything super well. I also control the diagonal so the king can't come over here. I prepare h4, check, and the king will have to go back home again. Rook e2, and you'll see how this continues. h4, check, the king has to step aside, and now, yes, we can keep bringing the king in. Watch out, it still seems difficult to actually win the position, because obviously, if we want to win, we have to, for example, promote a pawn, right? But they aren't going to let us, because the only pawn that looks like it can promote is this one, and it's never going to be able to get past the g-pawn. But of course, since we have our pieces so active, DC, we can manage, for example, to win this pawn by threatening it with all our pieces, so that then we do have a passed pawn. And how are we able to do this? By bringing the king in on a highway. The game continues. Rook e3. What does it threaten? It threatens to come and check us. So I continue improving my pieces with bishop g4. That makes sense, right? Hey, watch this video as many times as you need, because it's really going to be very helpful for you to understand everything. And if you watch it a second time, you're going to see things you didn't see the first time. So make sure to save this video. Rook e1. What are they trying to do? Trade rooks, right? Could they have tried to trade rooks a moment ago? That is, before trying to give this check? Do you see that they played rook e3 here to come and give chat? What happens if they tried to trade rooks with us? In this case, they would lose the game immediately, because we would simply trade rooks, okay? Simply put, all we would have to do is trade rooks, and our king's activity would end up winning us the game. And I'm going to give you a very nice example, although it's not easy, okay? I'm going to explain to you how to create a passed pawn here in a totally effective way. They have to keep defending this pawn the whole time, because if the king moves over here, I'm going to eat the pawn and win, right? So what do they have to do? Stay around here to defend the pawn. And our plan is, I bring the bishop, okay? They have to keep defending the pawn, whether it's from here or from here. I place the bishop on e4. What for? To control this diagonal. Now you'll see how important it is to control this diagonal. And now, yes, I'm going with the king to attack this pawn. I have everything set up now. What for? To play c5. And here I've already created a passed pawn. If you take with the bishop, I'll take this pawn, do you see? With the king, and I have this passed pawn. And if you take with the pawn, I simply create the passed pawn this way. d4. If you take, I have this pawn, and if you don't take, I'm gonna take, and this pawn cannot advance, which is why we place this other bishop controlling this diagonal. You can watch this as many times as you need. Like I said, it's not trivial either, okay? Let's put the pieces back where they were at the beginning. This was here, the pawn was here, this other one was here. And let's set this up as it was. I'm just missing the rooks. This rook was around here, and this rook was around here. And I'm missing two pawns, obviously, which are, the ones we already captured. Okay, perfect. Did I do something wrong? Yes, this. All right, we've got it now. So it's crystal clear that they can't come and trade rooks with us because we have a winning endgame. That's why they tried to give this check, right? We came here, and now they are trying to trade rooks. Well, they really can't do much else, because if they don't do this, we would simply win their rook. How would we win it with this chick? Rook to c2 check, they have to block with a rook and it's well defended, therefore we could capture it. And if they move the king away, we would simply capture it. That's why they are trying to trade rooks. And now, although a good plan would be to do the same as before and come with the king over here, we are, let's say, a bit far from that position because we moved the bishop. So there is an even easier plan to win, and it is the following. Rook to c2 check, forcing the king to come and defend the pawn, obviously, on g2. And so, for example, look at how the player with the black pieces restricted the white pieces. Now here, they simply took advantage of the pin to play bishop to f3, so that now there is only one way to defend that pawn. And what is that way with rook to g1? Do you understand? Right now, who has the opponent tied up? Obviously, black has white tied up. They can't move. How do we proceed? What do we want to do? Well, we want to play h3 to win the pawn because this pawn won't be able to capture thanks to the pin. Therefore, king to g4 to be able to get that h3 in, and obviously they won't be able to save themselves. Well, they can only make these moves because otherwise they would lose the pawn. And so, even though they've gotten out of one pin, we have another pin with the bishop. Therefore, we are ready to play h3. In the game, bishop to e4 was played first to keep it well defended, and after this after this king to h2, now yes, h3, and the game is completely won. I'll show you. They can't do anything here, they can't capture because it's pinned. Therefore, what they did was bishop to a5, a waiting move. Pawn takes pawn. They can't do anything. Again, they move the rook, but, well, simply put, black's plan is completely devastating. Look, rook to g1, and now the winning move of the game, rook to f5. Why is it a winning move? Very simple. It's threatening rook to h5 checkmate. You see it? If they move the rook away, we'll still deliver mate, check and mate, because the king wouldn't be able to escape. In this case, he would have the square, but he would lose the rook, and therefore it's practically useless to try to escape here. Therefore, here, notice that the only option to avoid getting checkmated is to give up the rook, okay? Give up the rook for this pawn, and all we would have to do is win the exchange. And obviously, this game's completely won. The only plan we need to execute is to try to bring the king over here, and even sacrifice our rook in exchange for the bishop. How could we do that? Very simple. For example, I'll demonstrate it to you with a few more moves so you can see how to win the endgame. Check, the king has to move, I move my king in, and now that I have everything set up, I bring the rook in, giving check, and I'm going to sacrifice the rook for this bishop. Why? Because I know I have a completely winning pawn endgame. I'm going to take this one, you see it, right? And I'm going to take the other one, and I'm going to promote one of these gazillion pawns I have here. It's a video, huh? Really interesting, complicated, but if you watch it several times, it's really going to help you a lot. These types of patterns are going to be really useful. You already know that in the channel's official academy, we upload new patterns every week. Videos like this one, but even much longer and more complex ones twice a week. We already have over 40 classes uploaded, and on top of that, we just released the Fundamentals course by WCM Julia Morante, which consists of 12 lessons for all of you who find this complicated. You watch those first, and then move on to these types of classes. And obviously, you also have 100% full access to the ChessMind platform with more than 60 opening courses. You have strategy and endgame exercises to practice with that are interactive. You already know that in the academy you can improve your chess level, but not just a little bit, no, a whole lot. I am 100% sure that if you join the academy, in 1 or 2 months, you will be a completely different player. Much, much better. And you can join for just €1 or $1. Why? Because we have a 7-day trial. We don't want to trick anyone, of course. You join for a 7-day trial for €1 or $1, and then you decide if you want to keep improving your chess level or if you want to leave the academy. There's no problem at all. The vast majority of players who join with the trial end up staying, and that's for a reason, because the academy is impressive. And by the way, I'm going to give you some news. In the coming days, I hadn't said this publicly yet, inside the academy and at no extra cost, because everything we add is at no extra cost, there's going to be a new course, but in this case, from a grandmaster. You already know that grandmaster classes, well, they cost a fortune, hundreds of euros per class, right? Or dollars. In this case, it'll be 100% included in the academy. And I'm going to incorporate another section where you'll be able to upload your own games. And yes, the Grandmaster, who I'm not going to tell you who it is yet, is going to analyze them. We're going to analyze one a month, and we're going to publish them so you can all see it. All of this, huh? Inside the academy. The academy's overall value just keeps going up and up, yet you'll keep paying the exact same price, okay? I really hope you loved it. Give it a chance, because you'll love it. If you want to improve at chess, it'll be perfect for you, and we'll see each other tomorrow. As always, friends, in the next video. Bye!